Hey friends, we are going to do a footnote section because there's been so much information about codependency that we really wanted to kind of dig in a little bit deeper and keep our episode quick for you all, but give you guys another portion to be able to watch and kind of get some more information from us. So we're going to jump into our footnotes. Okay, so one thing that I was thinking about is the concept you guys kind of talked about a codependent person as being the giver. And it reminds me of the construct of the Enneagram and how different personalities kind of tend towards different behaviors and different patterns. And Jan, I know you're super proficient in the, which personality?
Myers-Briggs.
Thank you. I could not find it in my head. So I want you to speak into this also because of what you know about Myers-Briggs. I know specifically in the Enneagram, 2s and 9s are really prone towards some of these patterns out of either trying to keep the peace and keeping everybody content. Right. Those are the 9s. And then 2s are really, really good at giving to other people to prove their love, their worth, their need, their value. And so what are some of the Myers-Briggs personalities that kind of loop into this area also?
SFJs, particularly ISFJs. So that's introverted, sensing, feeling, and judging.
Okay.
When you read the ISFJ, I like the Human Metrics website, and when you go there and read the description of the ISFJ, it actually uses the term doormat. Ooh. And that is just, it hurts my heart every time I read that description, especially since there are a couple people in my family of origin who are ISFJs, and it's just very painful to see that. So that is probably the most extreme that you would see. Now, that FJ combination at all, no matter where it falls, can be very difficult because an FJ tends to know what they want, and yet they're not able to make themselves do it because of that peacemaking. They want harmony for everyone. Yeah. So often they're not able to follow through on the things that they really want to do.
Man, that's so tricky.
So there's something else for the people who may not know whether they're a 2 or a 9 on the Enneagram or what their Myers-Briggs is. But if you know that you were perhaps a firstborn or a performer or a compliant child, or everything has to be perfect, chances are really high that this is something that you're going to want to notice if it's happening in your life too.
Yeah, no, I think that's so good because everybody doesn't necessarily know what their personality type is. And I don't think that is necessary in order to figure out whether or not we have codependent patterns in our lives. But I think it can be easy to hear the term a giver. It can often be codependent, and then somebody might become alarmed if they are a giver, that it likely is a tendency in our lives. I'm a 2, so I'm happy to say our and include myself in there. It can be a tendency, but I also think giving doesn't equal being codependent.
Correct.
Because I think there's a really healthy space of giving, of seeing other people, of really pouring into other relationships. And so I think it's that kind of that motivation piece of what you're talking about, especially with those FJs that you were saying.
Yes.
They know what they need and they're just either don't know how or are afraid to, or whatever the case may be, get what they need. And so again, it's that motivation. Why are they afraid? Why do they not know how to get what they need? Same with 2s and 9s. Is peacemaking so important to you that you're not willing to speak up or get your needs met?
I think the willing to receive is a big deal. So if you find yourself not able to receive, or it is almost painful to be able to accept something from other people, that might be a good thing to take notice of.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah.
And I think people are, I can say I was really aware of that before I really learned deeply about my personality and who I was. I do remember how difficult it was to let somebody ask me about myself, or how difficult it was to let somebody take care of me when I was sick, or whatever the situation may be. It like physically hurt my body to let people love me well. And so I would imagine that people are aware of that feeling, of the discomfort of letting others give back to you. And so even that might be a good place to notice, wow, I don't know how to do that.
Right.
Maybe I should pay attention.
I'd like to bring up a couple other points. One is performance and one is blame.
Okay.
Codependence tend to try to overperform, maybe into perfectionism, because that's where our value comes from. I talk a lot about doing versus being. Usually a codependent will try to get their value by what they do and not realize that we have value just by being. So that's a big distinction.
Yeah.
And then the other one is blame. Do we take on blame for what other people do? A lot of times we do that ourselves. A lot of times our partner or someone else may put all that blame on us, and then we just internalize that.
Sure.
That is so unhealthy, but that is a trait of a codependent.
Yep. I think that's such a good. We're giving you all these kind of pointers of, do you notice you do this? Do you notice you do this? And I think those are also really, really helpful, because identifying it can be hard. I think identifying it can be really uncomfortable.
And we don't want to know, so we usually resist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, at the beginning of our original episode, you guys kind of spoke about the lens that you guys see codependency through, which leads me to believe that there's multiple lenses. Can you guys say a little bit more about that?
I think there's been decades worth of work that has been done, and books that have been written, and workbooks and groups and all kinds of things are in place. And along another spectrum, because everything is a spectrum, right? And so the lens that Jan and I have fallen into is just the one particular one that talks more about self-love deficit and less about codependency.
Okay.
So that's
A piece of it.
Yeah.
And that work really comes out of Ross Rosenberg's work.
Sure.
His story is he was the codependent in relationship after relationship, and he was a counselor. And he would sit there with couples in his office, and couples would say, well, how can you counsel us when you can't even get it right? And he would answer, oh, I just have bad luck in relationships. Well, no. Finally, a friend of his came to him and said, no, you don't have bad luck in relationships. Yeah. And it's time for you to look at yourself in the mirror to find out what's happening. Right. And the result of that soul searching for him was his first book, which is The Human Magnet Syndrome. I'm not going to remember the subtitle, but it's something like Why We Love People Who Hurt Us.
Yes.
So if that sounds familiar, why we love people who hurt us, then it's worth looking into that. Yeah. But he's the one then who introduced that concept. He calls it the continuum of self, of we're healthy in the middle, and then we can be really unhealthy on the giving side or really unhealthy on the taking side. Cool. So that's what his work talks about, and that really has informed us and kind of become the foundation.
Yeah. Cool. Well, and I'm going to have a few other people on the show talking about codependency, so I think our watchers are really going to get to see some different constructs of what it is. And as you all watch, I think it's really important to recognize which lens really resonates with me in the way that I view the world and the things that I value, because I think that can be really helpful too.
Absolutely.
All right. Another reason why I brought you guys on here is because I really see both of you as significant professionals particular to this topic. Can you guys talk about how you kind of came to be that way?
Yeah, we ended up in the reception area, no matter what part of this building we were in, frequently scratching our head going, I had like 3 more people today with this same issue, and they think that they're the only one.
Right.
And so after about 1.5 years of that, maybe 2 years, we were like, we got to do something. This is like, it's really helpful. Helpful is not even a close term. It's just refreshing to realize that, wait, this isn't just me. Right. We are all built for relationship. And when that relationship feels like it's one-sided, sometimes we have a tendency to pull in. We were talking about this. There's a lot of research done about orphanages, and when the babies no longer are listened to when they're crying, they stop crying. Often people, particularly women, I think in this situation, stop asking. They just get to that place where I'm not even going to ask anymore. I'm just going to go along with the flow and see if something happens and changes. But until there's 2 people in a relationship, and until one person will be courageous enough to shift their dance, the other person's not going to change any dance moves,
anything.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And even when that one person does, the other person might try to do something to get them back into the old dance.
Predictably. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
But realizing that that's
Yeah.
another thing you can sort of listen for, watch for, in your heart, if that's something that's been part of your life, either from childhood, because sometimes it's parents that unfortunately set us up for this, and then we don't even know that it's not normal
Right.
when we find that other person that we think is going to fulfill us, and
Just great and wonderful. Yeah.
just doesn't happen. Yeah.
So you guys found yourselves kind of having maybe some of the same conversations over and over again with different clients and things like that. Cool. Yeah. I really want to let y'all know, if this feels really significant in your life, both Jan and Rita are incredibly well-versed in these conversations. And so if there is space in your life that you really want to dig in, they are both really, really great resources for you guys. So you can reach out to us. We'll make sure to have their contact information in the notes of our show so that you really know who specifically you can reach out to and who's really going to get what you're sharing, because they've heard so many of these stories before. And I think it is so valuable to know that we're not alone in what we're experiencing in our lives. And these are two people specifically who really are going to be able to meet you in the story that you have. So definitely, I think that's important to know. You're so welcome. Thanks for chatting a little bit more about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.